All right, this is the next section. In this section I will show you how to set up Mqtt MQTT broker in Docker. This is the rough basics that we'll go through. Right. Okay, MQTT, I think as I've mentioned before, that will run inside a Docker container on the Raspberry Pi. In this slide here you can see is what we're going to do is connect it to Node-RED. In this section I'm only going to show the Mqtt broker and how to do that. The next one I'll do Node-RED. But you can see this is the whole idea. You have lots of clients and they can be connected to temperature sensors, displays, whatever it is. And then the idea is that you can have publishers and subscribers. So one of them will publish, or many of them can publish, like a PRR, a temperature sensor, or whatever. And then the broker will take that message, and then any device that is then subscribed to that topic, it'll pass it on. So all it does is it takes published messages and sends them to all the subscribers. So if you have one publisher and you have 10 clients that are subscribed, say for instance a display or a lamp or whatever, then you can have one message being sent to many devices. So this is why MQTT has become the de facto standard in IoT, Internet of Things. Okay, so this is essentially now a bit more of a block diagram. There's two devices, you have a publish and a subscribe. This is what a topic looks like. So a topic is actually almost like a directory structure. So you start with your top one, like say home, then /office/lamp. So you could then have home, office, lamp 1, lamp 2, lamp 3, and you can have home, study, and then lamps. And so you can see all of them fall under home, but each one has its own sub-topic level. And it's then possible for you to filter out the actual, so you can actually say, I only want to look at the ones up to office, so all the ones to do with office, and it'll ignore all the other messages to do with the study or the bedroom or whatever. Okay, so here once again you see the whole idea: one broker, many devices. You can see like here's house office lamp, here's house kitchen door, and here's house room window. And so you'll see there, this is effectively your client, which in our case will be the D1 Mini, and then it would one of the D1 Minis, and then it would send the topic through the broker to another one, say for instance in our case the display. So this is as I showed in the previous section, we're going to be building each one of these services. We'll be adding in. So last time we did Portainer, and this time we're doing MQTT. Alright, this is what the Docker Compose file looks like. So you'll see I've made one now called Docker Step 2 Mqtt. This will get copied across into the Raspberry Pi, and you will then run Docker Compose up, and this will bring this up as another service. What I've done in each of these steps is I've kept each of them separate. You can combine them all, and at the end I'll show you how you can combine all of this into one Compose file. I want to just show each one step by step individually, how it looks and how it works. So this is a clip from Visual Studio Code, but you could use this a YAML file. You could use any editor, any text editor to edit this file. It's just pure text. Okay, so in the Docker Compose file we use Mqtt, which is, if you look at this, is the Docker image from Docker Hub. It's called Eclipse Mqtt because that's obviously the people. Eclipse is sort of the foundation that comes from way back of who started Mqtt or MQTT. Right, these are the tools. I've only sort of going to show 3 different tools here. I use this one the most, and it's the one I'll show in the demos, in the videos. This is called Mqtt Explorer. It's really amazing because the nice thing about it is it shows everything that's going on the broker. A lot of other tools you actually have to say this is the subscriber or the publisher I want to look at, and it'll only show you that. So if you're not sure what different topics there are, with this tool you can actually see exactly what's going on. It even has some visual in the video. You'll see it has some visual indications of, if you're watching temperature, you can see a graph of what happens, how things progress over time. This is another one called Mqtt FX. So I have used this one before. Each of them have their pluses and minuses. They work quite nice. And this is called Mqtt Spy. Most of these, especially like you look at this one now, and the other ones, are most of them all open source. So you can go to GitHub and go get the source code for this. You could modify it, rebuild it yourself, use it in whatever way you want. At the end I will show you there are a number of Android apps. I guess there probably are iOS apps as well. What we have here is when we set up the D1 Mini with a temperature sensor, the DS18B20, in the YAML file for the ESP home, we define what the topic is. So in this case we say it'll publish this it'll publish this topic. So you can see this is the name that we gave it in the D1 Mini YAML file for ESP home. So it's sensor DS18B20. Then at the bottom of that file we said there's a sensor with the name DS sensor 1 state, and then of course the state is, because it's a sensor, it can be on, off, or it can be a temperature. In this case it will be temperature, so you'll get a temperature reading coming out of this. It'll publish this temperature reading every 10 seconds. And then the OLED display has a subscribe. Now this is the most important here, because when we send a message to update OLED temperature, that's what will get displayed on the display, and then it internally creates this publish. So every time we update this, it'll automatically send us a message of what the latest value was. So it gives you an indication that it received your message, and it's kind of an acknowledgement of your message. I'll show a little clip of what the display looks like as it updates. Okay, this is now the next step. This is now, the idea is to install the Mosquito broker, the Mqtt broker. This is done in a very similar way as we did with Portainer. So I have created a file here called Docker Step 2 Mosquito. We will copy the file from our local drive, in my case D drive, across using WinSCP into the Raspberry Pi. What you will do then is, if you go to the command line through PuTTY with the SSH, you'll see there are now there is a second directory here. We can actually change into that directory. If we do an ls, you'll see there's just another Docker Compose file. Okay, one of the things you'll notice, which when you set up your two D1 minis, both the display and the DS18B20, that they will be trying to connect to an MQTT broker, which obviously they will not find. After 120 seconds the device will reboot, which you can actually see there. So what we'll do now is install the broker on the Raspberry Pi, and then you'll see that the D1 Mini will be able to connect. Alright, so what you'll see here in the dashboard is from last time we have one container, one image, and so the idea is now if we go to our console and we run Docker Compose up, it will now go and fetch the Eclipse Mosquito from the Docker Hub. You can see there it is, downloading it, unpacking it, and then in a matter of seconds it creates the Mosquito broker, and almost straight away you can see the two my two devices are now automatically connected. If I go now to here, you will see now in the terminal emulator, you will see that it's now connected where it was waiting for it before. If we switch now to here and we refresh, you'll see now there are two containers. If we click into that, you'll see there's now two containers. So here's Mosquito, same thing as before. You can look at the log file, you can see how it says here one device was connected from 101 and one device was connected from 102, which is the sensor and the display. If you go back to that and we go to the next line, as I showed before, this is the information about the actual container. There is also an image that has been pulled down, you can get information images. You'll see these are the two images. The last image on the previous section we pulled in Portainer, which is this service that we're looking at now, that allows us to have a look at all the other containers that are running. And then this is the one we brought in now. This is Eclipse Mosquito. So that's pretty much amazing that we now have an MQTT broker up and running. Okay, this is one of the tools that I showed in the slide. This is Mqtt Explorer. As you can see here, we have the IP address of the Raspberry Pi. That is where the broker sits. You can see these are the topics that I showed in one of the slides as well. So you can see that is the name that we gave it in the YAML file, in the D1 Mini YAML file for the DS18B20. Then as part of this ESP home, it treats this as a sensor. If you look at back in section 2, when we set up the software for the D1 Mini, in the YAML file at the bottom it had a sensor, and then this sensor here that was tied to that specific Dallas serial number. You can have a number of DS18B20s, so you could have 2 or 3 of them, and then each one would be DS sensor 1, 2, 3, whatever. You can see this is an example now of how the value has been changing in the last 10 minutes or so. Okay, so I'll show you a little video of how this works. So you can see this is a publish part here. So I will publish to this update OLED temperature, and I type in a value here, 23.5. If I now click that, the display will update with that value. I can then change it to another value. Let's say 24.2, and we press publish, and there you have the display updating. And then as a last one we can do 12.0, and you send that to the display and it'll up. Alright, then what that display also does is, as part of the ESP home, is it sends back a publish returns the value that you sent it. So it almost gives you a feedback of every time you send the display a value through the update, it will send you back a publish topic that you could then verify that it in fact received what you sent it. Next is these are two Android apps that I run on my phone. These allow you to connect to your network and connect to the MQTT broker inside the Docker container, generally on the IP address of your Raspberry Pi, 192.168.1.165 in my case, but This will be on port 1883, which is a general port for MQTT. Here's a second one. Also, both of these apps are both useful. They allow you, obviously, then you can only use it within your network. All right, that's all for this section. What I'll do in the next section is cover Node-RED, and Node-RED will allow you to take these MQTT messages and start working with them, capturing them, sending them on. And in the section after the Node-RED, we'll have the Influx Db and Grafana, which will obviously now Node-RED would send records to the Influx Db database, and then Grafana would allow us to visualize those graphs.